You're listening to the Overcast. Sunshine on a cloudy day. Part of the Oversoul gaming channel. Hello there everyone and welcome to the Overcast, bringing you sunshine on a cloudy day. I am your host Oversoul, and I'm here today with special guest, the vaping fiend, my good friend Nic Ludlow. Nic, how are you doing on this fine day?
I'm doing all right. It's been a bit of a day. I barely got any sleep, but I'll manage. I managed to make it to my local vape shop today, and I barely broke the bank, which I was really excited for.
Ooh, any interesting flavors?
I have this flavor called Beautiful Disaster. It's a deep blue raspberry.
Ooh.
I paid for it's a 120 milliliter bottle. I basically got two bottles for the price of one, $20.
Not too bad at all. Deep blue raspberry, you say?
Not at all.
Do you get the juice with the nicotine in it, or do you just get the flavor?
3 milligrams of nicotine.
Ah, okay, yeah. You do have a kid, don't you? So those make sense.
I do.
All right, well, yeah, I don't really have anything particularly interesting going on myself. I mean, I was doing some seasonal work at UPS, and that ended because, seasonal. And but I do have an interview at the time of recording this tomorrow at GameStop.
Nice!
They did say that they don't have any open positions at the moment, but they're doing this so that I can be like one of the first people they call when they do have one, which at this one I think kind of happens a lot. So I'm hoping that does lead somewhere here in the near future at least.
And that'd be perfect for you considering your whole thing is video games.
Yep, and speaking of which, over here on the YouTubes, I just recently started uploading episodes of The Devil in Me. Now, just to be clear, I recorded this all the way back in November when it came out, and
Okay.
I've been sitting on these for a while, and I did have the first episode available for members, for people who have a membership, for a while. But now the first 2 episodes are out, and I'll be pumping out more as we go, as I'm also finishing Plague Tale Requiem. And I'm also sitting on episodes of this horror game called The Chant, which I also recorded back in November, that I'll be putting out soon.
Okay.
But the Dead Space remake is coming out at the end of this month, and I think that one might get me back into live streaming, so we can perhaps maybe look forward to me doing a live stream of that when it comes out. But anyways, that's what's going on with me, that's what's going on with you. So this will take us to the Media Corner.
Sweet world of the movies, party time, excellent!
Alright everyone, welcome to the Media Corner, the part of the podcast where we talk about the games, movies, music, books, TV shows, etc. that we've been into lately. The entertainment that we enjoy, and we want you to enjoy as well. I actually didn't come prepared this episode for this particular section, so I'm going to go ahead and let you kick this one off while I see if I can't pull something out of my ass.
All right. So my go-to game lately has been Grand Theft Auto Online. I like how it's maintained its popularity over the last decade. It's hard to believe it's been out for almost a decade. If it wasn't for the promotion that PlayStation Plus had going on before they released the PlayStation 5 edition for the game, I wouldn't have my nightclub, I wouldn't have my motorcycle club, I wouldn't have a lot of things. Like, I've got pretty much every business you can think of in the game, and then some.
So in the last episode I mentioned this YouTuber named Dr. ER, and specifically because he's fun and educational, and another fun and educational video person over on TikTok, of all places, is I have no idea how the hell to pronounce his username, but it's I'm gonna put it up on the screen here too for those watching, but it's spelled MNDIAYE_97. It's like Mindaye 97 or whatever. But anyways, if you go on TikTok and search Animal Guy, he's the first thing that comes up.
Is he the one that talks about all? Is he the dude that talks about all the animals and a funny? Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yep. He's got because of TikTok censorship, he finds funny ways to say things, but he's still teaching you something about the animals. It's hilarious. He's quick-witted. He's fast edited. It's great for people who are short on time or attention span. It's great. I find it educational too. But if you prefer to get more in one sitting, he also has a YouTube channel. I think it's called like Rational Geographic or something like that.
Yes, okay. Now that you mention that, yes, I do follow him. He is hilarious.
And I'm gonna fact check that.
Okay.
Here in a second. But on his YouTube, he takes all of his short TikTok videos and compiles them together into one big longer video.
Nice.
And they're themed.
Now there is a YouTube channel that I wanted to plug and pretty much thank for basically helping me out with setting up my PlayStation 5 that I finally got my hands on back in September. I was doing some research on YouTube, looking up different YouTube videos and stuff that I needed to do to prepare my PlayStation 5 and whatnot. This channel is called PS Ready. The guy is he's very informative, and he doesn't just talk about PlayStation stuff too. There's been times where he's talked about Xbox stuff as well. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick, I fact-checked myself, by the way, and the channel is actually Casual Geographic. That's his name on YouTube.
Okay.
Casual Geographic.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay. That makes more sense then. Okay. Yeah, there was a couple of shows that I wanted to plug as well that I really enjoyed, that I think some of the viewers might enjoy as well, or listeners. All right, so these shows that I want to recommend, the number one is Manifest. It is on Netflix. It was originally an NBC show. NBC canceled it after 3 seasons. Then they put it up on Netflix, and then it sat in the number one spot, number one trending shows for a month straight. Netflix didn't want anything to do with it as far as making it an original show, but because it sat in that spot for a month straight, they revisited the idea. So they basically picked it up for a 4th and final season. And what I like the fact that they made it into like a supersized final season. Well, like most Netflix shows have like 10 or maybe 13 episodes. This 4th and final season has been split up into 2 parts with a total of 10 episodes each. So in total, this 4th and final season is going to have 20 episodes. Another one that I really enjoyed, after having someone convince me to watch it, Lucifer. I absolutely loved it. I loved all the Fox seasons. I loved all of the seasons that Netflix did. It could not have been done any more perfect. Lucifer is he's a nightclub owner who is, well, actually, you're gonna make me pull up IMDb. Hold on a second.
He said, "I can't rely on the old memory."
Yeah, no, the memory's not the greatest.
That doesn't bode well for the nostalgia.
Yeah, true. Lucifer.
Lucifer. LUCY space FUR.
Lucifer Morningstar has decided he has had enough of being the dutiful servant in hell and decides to spend some time on Earth to better understand humanity. He settles in Los Angeles, the city of angels. Okay, so it's like it's a crime. It takes place in the DC extended universe, which I actually didn't know until a friend of mine showed me a clip of one of the episodes of The Flash where Lucifer just so happens to make a cameo, and this was prior to the Lucifer show.
So that was from a big crossover event in the Arrowverse called Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that brought all of the characters from all of the Arrowverse shows together.
Okay.
To stop a multiversal threat, but it also they showed different worlds or different Earths, they call them.
Okay.
And on these different Earths were different characters from different DC shows, like the very old school Birds of Prey, or they had the guy who played Robin from the Adam West Batman. Obviously, they couldn't get Adam West,
Right.
But they even brought in like Brandon Routh's Superman from the 2016 movie, was it? I want to say 2000. I don't know. With Superman Returns, that one.
Okay.
So they brought him in, and they brought in I want to say it was Michael Keaton's Batman. No, it was him. No, Kevin Conroy's Batman.
Okay.
They just brought a lot of stuff over from different universes, and they even had like Ezra Miller's Flash in there, and so there's a part where Constantine and I want to say Black Canary or White Canary go to it's Constantine and White Canary. They go to visit Lucifer, and he's on Earth 666, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's the clip that you saw was from that crossover event, because they just brought over a lot of different DC characters from different things. They even brought like Black Lightning in for that one.
Okay.
And all kinds of stuff. They just basically said that every DC thing ever is just canon to their multiverse line.
Okay. Now, Manifest, let me pull up IMDb on that. A commercial airliner reappears after being missing for 5 years. As those aboard reintegrate into society, they experience guiding voices, visions of events yet to occur, and soon a deeper mystery unfolds. I like the approach that they took with this show because it does get somewhat biblical. I wouldn't say somewhat. It does get biblical, but not to the extent where it's too cringy to watch for the non-believer. But it's really good. That's one of my highly recommended shows. I'm not going to say too much on it because season 4 part 2 hasn't even dropped yet. But when it came down to the release dates for the announcement for season 4 and the release date for season 4 part 1, they heavily rely on references within the show. And I think that's what makes the show so interesting is they heavily rely on references in the show for stuff that they do. And I like that.
Okay. I actually had heard of this show before. I knew about both of them, but didn't know if everybody in the audience did.
Right.
But Manifest, I'm glad that you refreshed my memory because I had actually been intending to watch that, but I didn't know that it got canceled prematurely.
Yep, it was canceled by NBC and then Netflix picked it up.
Oh, Netflix picked it up. So is it currently still going then?
Yes, they.
Okay.
If I'm not necessarily, but I am willing to put money on the fact that they are going to drop season 4 part 2 on June 3rd this year, or possibly next year. I don't know. Simply because that date, June 3rd, is a very significant date in the show. And they they dropped season 4 part 1 on a significant date that's also within the show, which I like the way they're doing things. It's done so perfectly.
Okay, so I will add it to the list then, because
Yes.
if it was something that was going to end before it had a resolution, I wasn't going to waste my time. But to know that it kept going is good to know. So, and that it is still going.
Yeah,
so.
the 4th season will more than likely be the last.
Before I forget, since we are going to be on the topic of nostalgia today, let me recommend the show Cuphead on Netflix, based off the video game Cuphead. If you've seen some of my videos of the game, then you know what it is. You've seen me screaming and yelling and almost crying at it. And the show, however, is a completely different monster. The show is heavily inspired by, like, the classic Disney rubber limb cartoons of ye olden day, but there's also, you can tell, like, a sort of Ren and Stimpy vibe kind of mixed in there as well, in terms of the animation and some of the crude humor. And it's not too crude for children, but it's like some classic Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows we grew up with. It kind of like treads that line, you know. It treads that line for sure. So you got like the weird Looney Tunes, Ren and Stimpy humor and some of the animation, but also it feels very Disney at the same time. It's like this hybrid, and it scratches like all of the classic cartoon itches, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my recommendations. Do you have anything else?
There's a couple of shows. There's a couple of shows coming out here soon. Within the next couple of days, HBO Max is doing an original series based on the video game franchise The Last of Us. I am excited for this.
Oh yeah, that's coming out in a few days here. By the time you're listening to this, that will already be out, I think.
Yes,
Does it come out like on the 15th?
The 15th, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I will say there's a couple of movies that I want to recommend here. One of them, it's a nostalgic. The movie itself is nostalgic simply because the original the original came out back in the 90s. Clerks 3. If you have not watched any of the Clerks related movies like Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob, any of those, I highly recommend watching those as well. But the Clerks series alone is hilarious. And I will say, no spoilers, but if you are going to watch Clerks 3, make sure you have a tissue box. I'm just saying.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm not going to jump too far in the future here when it comes to preemptively recommending stuff. Otherwise, we'll be here all day talking about the Resident Evil 4 remake and other stuff like that.
Right.
So, I think that's good for the media corner in this episode. Let's go ahead and jump on into this episode's topic of discussion.
Hey, remember Ghostbusters? Oh, I remember.
All right, everyone, welcome to the topic of interest, the part of the show where we discuss this episode's topic of interest. And the topic this time is nostalgia. And this idea was actually brought on by our guest, Nick. This topic was his idea, so thank you for that.
You're
welcome. Actually a
welcome.
really good idea.
Yes.
So, man, so nostalgia comes in all bits and pieces, and it comes in all kinds of different waves and stuff. You got, like, you know, your favorite childhood memories, your favorite memories with your buddies, you know, just memories in general. But then you've also got, like, and it ties in with memories, but you've also got, like, nostalgia that you have for media.
Exactly.
You know, some of your favorite games and movies and stuff, and a lot of the reasons that people are so nostalgic for those games and movies and music and stuff is because of where it takes them. It takes them back somewhere, somewhere nice. Like you smell like you smell a warm apple pie and you're like, that smells just like grandma's cooking, And then it like takes you back to like grandma's house when you were young, and you got to waking up on Christmas morning, and there was the broiled goose and the plumberry pudding. And anyways, I didn't have any of that shit because I was poor, but but anyways, no, but seriously, it's just the idea that certain things can trigger certain memories, and that's where nostalgia really comes from, There's also an argument to be had that sometimes nostalgia can blind you to seeing the good in other things. Like, take, for example, people who can't admit when, like, a remake or a reboot is good because they're so stuck on the original being such a classic that they're not willing to give credit where it's due, That happens. That happens sometimes. And granted, there are some remakes that suck ass.
Hence the term "don't fix what ain't broken" sometimes.
Right, but there are some that are actually really good, and they deserve the credit that they get.
Sometimes the remakes are better than the originals.
There are a few rare cases where that's true. Yes, in the case of video games, a lot of the times that's the case. In the case of movies, not always so much, but. That's because with video games, it's a quality of life change, not just story. It's making the game more playable by today's standards. But so let me ask you, what are some of your fondest, earliest memories? Like, think back, like, way to the depths of your childhood, and like, what's the earliest memory you have, the youngest possible age you can think back to that was just like a very fond, very happy time for you?
I remember waking up on Christmas morning, unwrapping my very first PlayStation, and it was the PlayStation 2. And in the plethora of games, I know it's one of your favorite franchises. I don't even have to say it. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows. But it was the very first Kingdom Hearts game, and that was the perfect. I probably played that game first, to be completely honest, and I absolutely loved it. But prior to my PlayStation 2, I had a Sega Genesis. I absolutely loved my Sega Genesis. I had one of my. I don't know how many people know about this game, or even how popular it was, but my favorite game that I had for my Sega Genesis was called Booger Man. He was a superhero that fought monsters in the sewers, and his superpowers were like super blasted farts and flinging boogers at the bad guys. It was hilarious. Oh, and he mustered up some nasty ass burps too.
Believe it or not, I think I've actually heard Sid Schumann talk about that game on the PlayStation podcast when he waxes so philosophical about the Sega days. As you know, you want to talk about nostalgic, gross games? Earthworm Jim was one from my childhood.
Absolutely.
I grew up on... Somehow, some way, I always got lucky enough at every point in my life, even at points where my life was absolute trash, that somehow, some way, one thing that's always stayed consistent is that I've always had access to multiple gaming consoles at the same time. And there was no exception in my early childhood, where I had access to the Sega Genesis, PS1, and Super Nintendo all simultaneously.
Nice.
And I tell you what, here's a bit of fun fact for those of you. See, this is the stuff you don't get when you only watch the Let's Plays. So those of you that are tuning in, you're gonna benefit from this right here.
Uh-huh.
A little fun fact about Oversoul, a little behind the scenes. I got my start on recording video games. Like, my obsession with recording video games started at a very young age. Eventually, that just evolved into the Let's Plays I do now. But I shit you not, I would plug the Super Nintendo into the VCR, stick a blank VHS tape in there, and actually record gameplay of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on that VHS tape. Like, I'm sitting there recording no commentary gameplay ahead of its time, like way before YouTube even was a thing.
That's something I didn't even know.
Yeah, and you know what? That evolved later. I had a DVD burner at one point.
Nice.
So it was a DVD VCR combo with a built-in DVD burner. And I would play Kingdom Hearts games on the PS2, and I would record the gameplay onto a VHS tape. Mm-hmm. And then I would, I would stick a blank disc in the DVD part, and as I play back the recording of the VHS, it's simultaneously burning that footage onto that DVD on the other side.
Nice.
So I was making DVDs of my gameplay. Man, I was doing this shit way before YouTube existed.
Hell yeah.
You know, and I had early starts. Before this channel, I had a different channel completely where I did, like, all kinds of random stuff. Eventually got taken down because of some Family Guy copyright stuff. But I had, like, a whole series called Kingdom Hearts: The Random Files, where I just put, like...
I remember those.
It was footage of King...
Wasn't that your Jay Grizzle page?
Yes, and it was actually stolen. The idea was admittedly stolen from another YouTuber at the time named DC Reverks, who did the same thing but called it Kingdom Hearts: The Stupid Files.
Okay.
And so, but basically it was literally just... But she had no problem with the fact I did it, because she actually saw mine and commented on a few of them and said that they were funny. And it was like a trend on YouTube at that time, if I'm being honest. It was like a big... Because this is when Kingdom Hearts 2 was really popular.
Okay.
And So yeah, that was right around the time that Kingdom Hearts 2 was really, like, popular, right? When it really kicked off, and there was a bunch of videos available for it that you could download on different websites, like cagevids.net and stuff like that. So people used those to throw these together. And these videos, the random files, the stupid files, and other variations thereof, were basically just clips from the games edited together and then dubbed over with audio from, like, different movies and TV shows and video games and stuff. So, just, like, replacing the audio to make it funny or making jokes about stuff. Like, a good example, one, like, sometimes it was pretty hit or miss, but one that was actually funny was, there's a part where there's actually audio from the game, where they first meet Organization 13 in Kingdom Hearts 2, and Goofy's like, "Oh, look, it's Organization 13!" And it cuts to them, and then it dubs over the audio as it's panning over all these guys in these black hoods, and the audio says, "We are the Men in Black." So,
that's great.
Organization 13!
We are the Men in Black.
that one always did make me chuckle. That's the one like the joke I remember the most from those, because that one I actually, like, did a spit take when I was watching it for the first time. But yes, that was back when I was in high school.
Yes.
That's what passed for funny back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, time has flew. And to add to your obscure Sega Genesis games, by the way, I want to say mine is Arrow the Acrobat.
Okay. All right.
Do you remember that one? Did you ever...
I don't even think I ever heard of it, to be completely honest.
I mean, I played the populars too. I have a lot of fond memories of Sonic and Mario.
Yes, Sonic.
For me, it was particularly, like, Sonic 2 was, like, my favorite on the Genesis. That's the one that introduced Tails, and you could give the second controller to your little brother and have them play as Tails, because, you know, they were younger than you, so they weren't as good at you as the game, so you gave them the invincible character who can't actually die, you know.
One of my favorite Sonic games on the Sega Genesis was Sonic 3D. It gave a feel of... It wasn't your, like, normal, like, scroller platform type 8-bit video game. It was like... It was like the first introduction I actually had to like something along the lines of an open world type video game. Like you could move around instead of it wasn't just a side scroller.
You're talking about the one where you save the little birds, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was actually. I feel like that game was slept on. If I'm being honest, it's underrated. I feel like that was actually that and Sonic Spinball, where he's basically a pinball, where two like gems in the Sonic lineup that I feel like not enough people appreciated how good those two actually were.
That game was ahead of its time for sure.
Yeah, and then we got Sonic 06 on the 360, and things just kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah.
And then uphill again, and then downhill again, and then uphill again, and downhill again, just like Sonic himself.
And now,
So,
because we're on the topic of Sonic the Hedgehog, I figure I have to it gives me a chance to bring up one of the channels that you and I used to watch together a while back, Sonic for Hire.
I knew you were going to say that. I almost said it myself, but you beat me to it. Yes, continue. Yes.
Yeah, Sonic for Hire was by far one of my favorite memories that you and I shared together when it comes to different YouTube channels that you've showed me. That and Ray William Johnson's Equals 3, which we watched every single one of those in like a week or so.
Oh God, yeah, we did, and then he made that band, Your Favorite Martian.
Yes.
But
Orphan
like
Tears.
And then, but it, and then they disappeared for a while, and now they're back.
Yes,
now
they
they're back,
are.
but that's not nostalgia. They got a different sound and everything. I may have to recommend them in a future episode. Now that I think about it, but
yeah.
A lot of things from our youth are coming back, so that's actually like it's a good time to talk about this stuff. Do you remember Sanity Not Included? That was a YouTube channel I think we watched a lot.
Yes, vaguely, but yes, I do remember the channel.
That was like Lyle and Dexter, right? So it was mostly just like clips from video games where they dubbed over with their own jokes.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Stuff. It was like
right.
Video Game Robot Chicken or some shit, But they also had like an overarching story that was told through hand-drawn animations that went throughout, and they had I think they had 5 or 6 seasons before they finally ended. At one point, Lyle left, and he was replaced by this guy named Alex, and he was part of the show for a while too, and yeah, I think their last season was in 2019 or something like that. So not that long ago, but sometimes that stuff feels like forever ago, doesn't it?
It does. It's like I remember it's not necessarily nostalgic, but I remember you are the reason I have such a love for the show Supernatural. I borrowed each and every one of the DVDs that you had and returned them on time. Well, not necessarily on time. I can return them whenever, but
what did you think I was, a blockbuster?
I mean,
no wonder I can't find any success.
Man, but no, yeah, I thank you for that, because I would have never even thought about looking into that show. That's by far still to this day one of my favorite shows. Yeah.
Man, it's so many things that we've gone through. And so would you say that there's anything that you're a huge fan of now? I know we mentioned Kingdom Hearts already, and frankly I could do a whole episode on that series too. But but is there anything that you find you're still a huge fan of now that you've grown up with over time, and that's where there's that nostalgia, as you've grown up and matured, so has this particular thing? I know in my first episode I talked about South Park doing that. And we've talked about Kratos doing that. So what would be something for you?
Pokemon. Not even gonna lie. And the fact that Pokemon Go isn't still going strong, but when it came out, the fact that it brought together so many different demographics of people from different walks of life is amazing, and it just goes to show how amazing of a franchise it is.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen so like I recently got back into Pokemon because of several people I know just, being absolutely gaga for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've this the last one I played on the handhelds was Emerald on the Game Boy Advanced.
Okay.
And I skipped so many generations for a long time because I just lost interest, and I'm back on it now. And the significant changes that they've made, especially like with the most recent entries in the franchise. Last year we got Pokemon Legends Arceus as one of them, and that brought it into a world where the Pokemon are on the map running around in real time, and it's like a more open world thing, and you as the player are actually in danger of being hurt by them, not just your Pokemon.
Interesting. No, ironically, I bring up Pokemon. For Christmas, my mom actually crocheted a Pikachu for me, and along with Pikachu, she crocheted a Pokeball for me.
Ooh, nice.
She's very, very creative when it comes to her crochet. Like a while ago, I saw a post on Facebook having to do with like an arts and crafts project to like a crocheted Falcor from the Neverending Story movies. So I'm like, I wonder if my mom can make this. Sure as shit, she delivered, and I have a crocheted Falcor sitting on my bed.
Man, Falcor, the Neverending Story. Oh, that's nostalgic as hell.
Yeah,
that is. Oh man, that's a movie from my childhood that I'm still wondering whether or not I should have watched during my childhood, because damn, that movie had some scarring moments.
It did.
Atreyu, like, oh man, the horse in the bog and the scary wolf. Come on, man.
Yep.
Like, those are moments I'll never forget. But that's part of nostalgia too, right? Even some of like, because now you can look back on it and know that you were just a silly child and there wasn't anything to really be scared of. I have one in particular when I used to live with my great grandmother, and a lot of my childhood memories are from there because she lived on this great big house on the top of a hill surrounded by 24 acres of woods, and there's just so much to do and play with and run around and explore. I covered like every square inch of that 24 acres as a kid.
Nice.
Because I didn't have anything better to do, because eventually I had the Game Boy Advance, and I had the Game Boy Advanced SP, then I had the DS. I just kept moving up and up and up. So and but like, so there would be times I didn't have access to stuff, or like the shows that I like to watch weren't on, so I'd like explore the woods and stuff. But I distinctly remember there was like an animated cartoon based off the story of the little engine that could. It was like a cartoon movie, like one of those like straight to VHS that you buy at like the dollar store type things. And I remember there being a scene where he's trying to get over the mountain, and it's like dark and stormy, and it's like he almost falls off a couple times. And like I remember as a kid like running and hiding under the kitchen table every time that scene came up because I found it scary for whatever reason. Like I have weird distinct memories like that about certain things. Like when you think of Pokemon, where does that draw you back to in your childhood? Like, where does that take you specifically?
That takes me back to the collecting of the Pokemon cards.
Oh God, yeah.
If I remember, I still to this. It's probably sitting in my storage unit somewhere, and I have it probably got lost, but I have an entire like binder full of Pokemon cards that probably hold a lot of value.
Oh, wow.
Like okay. I have Japanese holographic Snorlax sitting in that binder. I've got Is it
still in good condition?
I believe so. There was I have from it was a promotional card that they handed out at the movie theaters when the very first Pokemon movie came out. I have the Ancient Mew card in there as well.
Oh, I remember that.
And I was actually kind of shocked. I'd gotten like one of the random like trading card packs, like the regular standard trading card packs one day, and I opened it up, and the holographic card that was in there, I lost my mind because it was a holographic Entei.
Oh, damn! You don't say. That's gotta be like you. Speaking of Entei, the only Pokemon movies I ever watched were during my childhood, basically, and I think I stopped at like the fourth one with Celebi, and I haven't seen any of them since. But out of all of them, the one I probably remember the most is the first one with Mewtwo. But after that, I have to say it's the third one with Entei, which also happens to be my personal favorite. It had Entei, it had the Unknown, it had I really like the soundtrack to that one too.
I had the soundtrack for the Pokemon the first movie and Pokemon 2000. Now there's a song on the soundtrack for Pokemon 2000 that I can't find anywhere but here on YouTube, and that is Pokemon by Weird Al Yankovic.
That was on that soundtrack?
It was.
But it didn't play in the movie.
It played in the end credits, if I remember correctly.
Okay, or did it play in like the little pre-movie short? Because they did like the Pixar thing with those. Because you remember how the first Pokemon movie introduced some Gen 2 Pokemon in that short, like Snubbull.
They did.
Snubbull and Meryl.
No, I think it was in the end credits, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. You could be right. It could have been in the pre-movie short. I can't remember.
Part of the reason the soundtrack to the third movie is so memorable for me is because when I was a kid, and this is more of that, like, the recording fetish I had that just grew into a Let's Play thing. And
recording fetish.
And so I used to take, like, my great-grandma's, like, handheld, she had this big, clunky-ass, like, tape recorder that had like the play, record, pause button. You could just put a blank cassette tape in it and record, but it wasn't like a little handheld recorder. This was noticeable. Okay, you wouldn't be getting any covert operations done with this thing,
No.
This was like bigger than the cancer phones. And
oh Jesus.
But anyways, I would take this thing and I would hold it up to the TV while songs were playing. And I swear I was a little diva or something, because if I was I had to do this shit when I was home alone, because if something happened in the background that interrupted, because I wanted the song and the song only. So if it picked up any noise in the background, I would be like, God damn it! Just like, I told you not to make any noise!
Yep.
Just like I had my Christian Bale on set moment, the set of Terminator. Just like, you walked in front of the lights! So I had that. So I would take that tape recorder and I'd hold it up to the TV speaker as the song I wanted to record was playing, and I recorded like all the songs I liked from the soundtrack of that movie. But keep in mind I'm recording it directly from the movie itself, so there are some moments where it catches sound effects too, like the opening song, the Pokemon Johto remix, had some of the audio from the current battle that's happening while the song is playing, so you caught that in there. So that evolved into, now for this, we're gonna need some context. Let me pull up the Wayback Machine and take y'all back to, a time on Cartoon Network where it was pretty much ruled by this group of cartoons known as the Cartoons.
Cartoons.
Yes. And how you knew which ones they were was because at the end of every episode of their show, the main character of the show would pop their head out of the Cartoon Network logo and say Cartoons, and these shows, the Cartoon Network had all kinds of stuff on it at that time, but the cartoons specifically were a weird breed. And they consisted of shows like Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Time Squad, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, which back then was known as Grim and Evil, Mike, Lou, and Og, I Am Weasel, Robot Chicken, Cow and Chicken, not Robot Chicken, Cow and Chicken.
I love Cow and Chicken. That was, and I think Two Stupid Dogs was in there too.
Two Stupid Dogs was a different thing. That was part of their early morning run. That was
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that was part of their like cartoon short early morning run. Now, Two Stupid Dogs actually got its start on Cartoon Network. Used to put out this series called the What a Cartoon Show, and
I remember that.
Basically, what it was basically 3 short animations that were supposed to be pilots for different shows being pitched to Cartoon Network, and a lot of shows got their start on there. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy got their start on there, and they were originally known as Grim and Evil because half of the show was about the Grim Reaper and Billy and Mandy, and the other half was about this brain in a jar attached to a bear known as Hector Con Carne, and he was trying to plot world domination. Eventually, that half of the show got axed, and General Scar moved in as Billy's neighbor in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and which is what that show became. But other shows under Cartoon umbrella included like Sheep in the Big City, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Ed, Edd and Eddy, Johnny Bravo, so like you get the picture at this point. A lot of them don't exist anymore. Like Mike, Lou, and Og was one of the first ones to go poof. Time Squad, poof. I have a lot of nostalgia. I remember that one distinctly because it was this big hulking doofus, this smart robot, and this little nerdy kid that would basically travel through time and fix time distortions. There was like history wasn't happening the way it was supposed to, and they'd go back and fix it. So every Friday night, this particular group of cartoons would get together and host a special event called Cartoon Fridays. And this event was used as a catalyst to push out new premiere episodes of like these were the first time anyone got to see these episodes on TV of these shows. And every Friday it was always hosted by a different person, like Double D from Ed, Edd and Eddy hosted once, Dexter hosted once, I think Samurai Jack hosted one night, Weasel hosted one of them. Johnny Bravo hosted one. They always had someone different. The Powerpuff Girls, yada yada. And so I watched these every night, and you see what happened was one fateful Friday night after Cartoon Fridays, Toonami came on.
Yes.
This was a little bit different because usually it would go into like the late night, like it would go into like Adult Swim or like the Tex Avery show or some late night stuff like that, And the Tex Avery show, man, that's a whole different box of elephants right there. But
yes.
But like, I mean, I as a kid was watching like old school black and white cartoons on Cartoon Network at like 2-3 in the morning, like Tex Avery, Betty Boop, stuff like that. Yeah. But so Toonami came on one particular night, and this was a very special run of Toonami because they weren't doing anime like they usually do. And this was back when like they were running like Dragon Ball Z episodes in the middle of the afternoon.
Yes.
This was before Toonami was an Adult Swim thing. And I was there for the beginning of Adult Swim. I remember when it was when it was still a pool,
Yes.
And the bumper would be like, all right, all kids out of the pool. Adult Swim is starting now, and they had shows like Baby Blues and C-Lab 2021 and Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law. And fun fact, for a lot of those shows, they just reused assets from old Hanna-Barbera shows. Because that was back in the day when Cartoon Network was still rerunning a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff from Boomerang, But this particular fateful night, Toonami was playing music videos, and these music videos happened to be from two of who later went on to become two of my all-time favorite bands, Daft Punk and Gorillaz, and they played 4 songs.
Nice.
They played 4 songs by Gorillaz. I believe it was it was 3 songs by Gorillaz. They played Clint Eastwood, Tomorrow Comes Today, and 19-2000, the music videos from their first album. Because this was when their first album came out. This was the year, this was the time. This was how I discovered Gorillaz. And
nice.
So, and then Daft Punk right after them, and they played 4 music videos for them, which were all back to back. The first 4 songs from their Discovery album, One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. And
Okay.
these music videos, the Gorillaz music videos were all standalone, but the Daft Punk music videos together, when all 4 of them were watched back to back, told a story that ended on a cliffhanger. And it turned out to get the whole story, you had to watch this movie called Interstellar 5555, which is a feature-length animation that plays the entirety of their Discovery album to a cartoon about aliens being kidnapped by a evil record company on Earth, being forced to perform for them, and being saved by another alien that has a crush on one of the band members.
Okay.
You can actually find the full thing on YouTube and watch it. It's really good. It's such yeah, and so this started my love for Gorillaz and Daft Punk, and sadly Daft Punk is retired now, but Gorillaz is still going strong with a new album coming out this year, and I am still a huge fan of both of them. And
Nice.
I still get nostalgia for that night when I go back and watch some of these music videos.
Nice. While we're on the topic of Adult Swim and stuff like that, I was watching. I had to look it up to see how old the show was, but Moral Oral, the pilot episode, there was one line in the pilot episode that absolutely had me rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. And Moral and his friend were walking, were walking, and they were like, "Well, let's cut through the cemetery. It's always pretty through here. Is that because dead people make good manure?"
Yeah, Adult Swim is wild, man. I mean, they used to have shows like Super Jail and Metalocalypse, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which was my jam for the longest time. I have a lot of nostalgia surrounding Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That was my number one Adult Swim show. So stupid, but that was the point. The point was that there was no point. And fun fact about that show, they didn't think that they would be able to sell it as just anthropomorphic food, just does nothing, just does random crap. So they actually lied about the premise of the show when they pitched it to Adult Swim and said that it was going to be about them like fighting crime and solving mysteries. And so that's what they actually do for like the first 3 episodes, and then they immediately stop doing that and just do random shit. And just that it becomes like the vulgar, messed up show that we all know and love, where Carl dies every episode.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's oh man, it's great stuff. Do you have any particular, the only theme park I've ever really been to is Six Flags out in Gurnee, Illinois.
Yes, I actually used to work there. I worked there for a little while. It was really interesting. I've got some stories on that.
It was actually like my first experience with roller coasters, and I want to say I was maybe like 13 at the time. So that's back when they had the Superman, and that's
still there actually.
Oh, is it? Okay, so
yes,
that was actually my first roller coaster, which I think might have been a mistake because like I'm afraid of heights, and like the track is above you in that bastard. So like. But they did tell me, they're like, well, if you can handle this one, you can handle any of them. And right. I ended up in that same day riding the Batman, the Iron Wolf, the Raging Bull, the Eagle, the Viper. I ended up going on all them sons of bitches.
See, my first theme park experience, like you, was Six Flags. But this was back, I was in 3rd grade, and I had won tickets through the little the math booklets that they would have the kids do in grade school years ago, just for like incentives. And I was in 3rd grade, and it was right around the time the first Space Jam movie came out, and I remember going on the River Rapids ride, and not long after in Hometown Square at the music hall, they had, this is back when Six Flags still had their contract with Hanna-Barbera. They had a Dexter's Laboratory musical / play inside the music hall in Hometown Square.
Okay.
It was really cool.
Wow. I was gonna ask if you've been to. I'm sure you have some more major theme park experiences, considering that you hail from the land of Florida.
Disney, yes, I
The
absolutely yes.
state of funny headlines
Yes, exactly.
and the meth gators.
Yeah, that part. No, there's a lot of different like nostalgic aspects when it comes to my experiences at Disney as well. I remember my first time at Disney, I was 15. There was a ride that I absolutely fell in love with. And this falls under the nostalgia category as well. Not just because of its of the time I experienced it, but the ride as well. The ride is called Rock and Roller Coaster featuring Aerosmith, and it's basically a high speed limo ride to an Aerosmith concert with backstage passes. Because when you first enter the room to do the debriefing before you get in the line for the ride, they have this, it's not necessarily animatronics, but like an animation up on a wall that looks like it's inside of a recording studio. And Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, and all of the guys from Aerosmith are in there, and their manager's like, "Hey guys, we gotta go, you guys got a show here." And Steven Tyler sits there and he acknowledges the physical people that are there in the room. He's like, "Well, what about these guys? Why don't we hook them up with backstage passes?" It's a really cool and nostalgic ride all on its own. And it doesn't take off and then catch up to 60 or 70 miles an hour. It takes off at that speed, and it is amazing. And the entire time the roller coaster is going, you got Aerosmith music playing in your ears.
I've never had the good fortune of being able to visit like any major theme parks like that or Orlando Studios or anything. Closest I ever got was Six Flags out here, but
there was another ride that is one of Disney's most famous movie franchises was based off of this ride. And the main protagonist just made headlines with his ex Amber Heard recently, and in recent news, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh man, I was gonna guess National Treasure.
Yeah. Alrighty then. No, that's actually another one of my favorite franchises that Disney did. Although they never did any sort of rides having to do with National Treasure. But yes, that's another movie franchise that Disney did that I absolutely fell in love with the first time I saw it. But Pirates of the Caribbean, hands down. I actually got to ride it before they started making changes when Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest came out. Because when Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest came out is when they added Jack Sparrow, Davy Jones, and all those fun characters to the ride. And Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley, Orlando Bloom, all of those guys were there at the grand reopening of the ride.
Ooh,
yes.
Nice.
I didn't have I did not have I wasn't fortunate enough to actually be there for that. That would have been amazing to see Johnny Depp in person. It was just been amazing.
Man, well, I'm glad somebody got to have the good theme park experience. I basically just binged all the roller coasters and said, well, I'm done. That was, you brought up, like grade school and all that earlier, and it got me thinking about, nostalgic school stuff, like book fairs.
Yeah.
You remember book fairs?
Yes.
You know? Or just, like, going to your school library and just, like, rummaging around the different like books on the shelves, just looking at things, or just like checking stuff out from your local library. That was like before Redbox, before Netflix, you would go to the library, get a library card, and just rent like old ass movies.
Mm-hmm. There was a while ago. This was years ago, back when I was in grade school. Right around when which movie was it that Dobby was in for Harry Potter? Which one was he in? Was he in Prisoner of Azkaban?
I think that's right. Hell, I can't remember honestly though.
There was a Dobby statue that they had inside of a Walmart, and they were doing like a contest for like different schools in the Rockford school district. And my mom just so happened to be the PTO president of the school that I was going to at the time. She signed up our school, and they had a reading contest, and the winning school got to have that Dobby statue in the school library. And my school just so happened to win the reading contest.
So do you have any, like, still thinking about childhood right now, do you have any, like, what's your first, I mean, because like I said, nostalgia can be like good memories and bad memories and stuff like that, but like, so what's like one of your first, like, oopsies as a kid, like maybe you fell off a skateboard and broke your arm or something like that. You did like you thought that you were going to, surprise your parents with a home-cooked meal and you just set the whole stove on fire, anything like that?
You'll laugh at this one. It was actually I got my first bike without training wheels. I was at my grandparents' house, and my mom and dad were there as well. And my grandma and grandpa, they lived on a busy road, and their driveway, at the end of their driveway was a busy road, and across that busy road was a ditch. Because I hadn't gotten the hang of the riding a bike without training wheels just yet, I found my way across the street into the ditch. But what's funny about that is my helmet was one of those really cool helmets that had like a brain on it. And my dad, he's in the medical field. He made the joke, if things would have went really wrong, I don't think the medics would have been able to tell between your helmet and your actual brain.
Interesting dad humor to keep you from freaking out.
Yeah.
I had some bike oopsies myself. I remember in my teen years, I was riding my bike real quickly down a hill, and my foot had slipped off the pedal and like into the spokes. So it got stuck between the wheel and the bar that, keeps the wheel attached to the frame. And so I ended up like flipping over the handlebars, and I walked it off. I was surprised I was able to walk it off. Like, man, the things that we put up with as kids that our bodies just couldn't, like my old ass wouldn't handle that now. No. I'd be in bed for like 3 days after that. Like I can't do that shit anymore. But like, man, it's amazing just like the injuries and other mishaps that we just walked off
pretty much
as kids. I remember, like, obviously I didn't have as good of a depth perception back then because, or less of a fear of heights for some reason, because I remember climbing to the tops of them big ass slides, and instead of sliding down them, just jumping off, just to like show off. Raise your hand if you ever did that shit as a kid,
right.
Jump, see how high you can swing and then jump off at the height of your swing.
Every time.
See how far. Yep.
Every time.
Or the kids that would swing really high and then do like a backflip,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never did that shit. I never.
Even now,
I could hardly do a somersault.
Even now, when I take my daughter to a playground, I'll try and, like, if I have somebody with me, like another adult, to keep an eye on her while I'm on the swing, I'll try and swing as high as I possibly can, and I'll just jump off.
Did you ever, once you were older enough, and for the playgrounds that still had them, the carousel type thing, just the big spinny pinwheel looking thing with all the handlebars sticking out of it? Mm-hmm. So did you ever like start that up yourself, like just grab the bar and just run in circles and then just hop on?
Yep.
And just hold on for dear life?
Sure did.
And then, like, did you ever regret that after the fact? Like, oh god, what have I done to myself?
Pretty much.
Hopefully it'll stop soon. Like 2 hours later, it's still spinning.
Yup.
Oh, I have so many fond memories of that.
Yes.
Man, the video games and the shows and the movies of our childhood, you know, we talked about so many of them, Pokemon and Space Jam, you know, grew up on the Sega, the Nintendo, you know, playing in the woods, playing on the playground. You know, Spyro the Dragon gets a special shout out for me, by the way, with the PS1 game nostalgia.
Yes,
so much
absolutely.
PlayStation. So much PlayStation nostalgia, especially. And Nintendo 64 was a big one in my childhood as well. That's where my love for things like Mario Kart, Mario Party, and games like that evolved. Smash Bros. That was all. They all got their start on the Nintendo 64.
I never had a Nintendo 64, but I do remember a majority of the consoles.
Oh, you poor soul.
Yeah, I know. I do remember going to Circuit City though every once in a while and going to the video game section and playing the demo of Pokemon Stadium that they had.
Oh my god, yes, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that's a huge part of my memories is like going to the store. Like I hate going to the store now, but when I was a kid I used to be excited to go to the store because, well, everyone else was doing all the hard work shopping. My ass was in the electronics section playing all the game demos, you know. And that would be so many places. I mean, like GameStop used to have those and they don't really even have those anymore. But like back when malls were malls, like they had like EB Games and
I remember
places
EB
like
Games.
that. And you know, so like places like Walmart and Target and Kmart RIP used to have these video game displays. Old, like you said, Circuit City, which basically no longer exists. Best Buy, they used to do that a lot too. Best Buy was one of the best places for it. In fact,
yes, they were.
They're electronic focused.
Another store that was good for that was Media Play. They had a lot.
Yep, that's exactly what I was about to say. We kind of linked up here.
Yep.
Media Play, I remember when I was a kid going there.
Yes.
If you're talking about the one in Rockford.
Yes.
Had like a section specifically designated for kids, and like
they sure did.
And it was like they had the chairs you could sit in and like the books you could look at and other stuff that you could do. Like it was perfect. Like that Media Play was a fun store. When you walked into that place, it just had this like welcoming vibe. There's not a lot of stores anymore that let you like fiddle with shit the way that those old stores used to.
Exactly.
You know? There's like, I remember places like Toys R Us and Media Play used to be very, you know, let the kids take the things off the shelves and play with them. We don't care.
Exactly.
You know, let them go nuts and have fun. But now that's not the case so much anymore.
No.
You know?
But no.
Toys R Us was another one, you know.
They had a section specifically dedicated to video games too.
Yep, and that was, man, I spent so much of my childhood in Toys R Us.
Yes.
When it was still around. Oh man, I remember when the mall in that area had a movie theater in it. You know?
Yep, they sure did.
I mean, I grew up in the 90s, but like, it makes me sound old. Like I sound like an old guy reminiscing, but it just goes to show how much has changed in such a short period of time.
I mean, we are in our 30s.
I mean, we are, but that's still not like old.
Right. That's
like,
yeah, true.
Just think about how much more change we have yet to experience as time goes on. But like, you know, speaking of time going on, let's look back on some of the more recent years of our youth, like the teens and the early 20s and stuff. I remember I met you in my early 20s.
Yep.
And, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of shindigs. I remember.
Yeah,
we used
did.
to come over and hang out a lot, and we would so many memories of like playing like PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Oh,
and,
that was by far one of my favorites. I remember a certain prank that you pulled on me, sir.
Oh, really? Do you want to enlighten people?
Oh, let me remind you. Ghost pepper salsa.
Oh, yes. I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, okay. So Oversoul here, he doesn't like spicy foods. And I know that. But he was renting a house. He was renting a room in his ex's cousin's house, and he shared the refrigerator with him. Not thinking, he's like, "Dude, I got this salsa. You gotta try." So me not thinking, knowing that he doesn't like spicy foods, I downed the entire spoonful. He looks at me and he goes, "Dude, that's ghost pepper salsa. You're gonna unalive."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
My
man.
mouth
The
was
look.
on fire for a good half hour, maybe an hour. I cannot remember. It was bad.
So here's the thing, right? So for even funnier context, I intended for you to take a taste of it. I gave this dude a tablespoon, and like I'm not, when
This
you buy
was not a
set
tablespoon. This was a full this was like a fucking soup spoon, bro.
Yeah, so like when you when you buy a full set of silverware, they got the tiny spoons and they got the big spoon. This was a big spoon.
Yeah, this was the biggest spoon he could find.
But I intended for him to like slurp a taste of it. Yeah, I wanted him to taste. I even said taste this, but this man was like a cartoon character, and he just took the whole thing and said "shlomp," and and I had a look of horror on my face. I know I did because I was like, dude. I was like, that's Ghost Pepper Salsa!
Oh my god.
And then, of course, he had a look of horror on his face once he realized what it was, and then it kicked in.
Yup.
That was... Oh, that was a moment, man. That house was creepy. Remember we used to go ghost. Remember, we used to go ghost hunting in there a lot.
I remember one night specifically. We did it like as soon as we got done watching the first Insidious movie, and I absolutely I avoided that movie like the plague for the longest time until the sequel movies came out.
Bro, that movie was creepy as hell.
It was
when it first came out.
Through the window, by the window.
But it's even, like, especially, like, I think atmosphere has a lot to do with that, right? Because I remember the first time I watched The Grudge was at, like, one of my mom's ex-boyfriend's houses, and he lived, like, in the outskirt, one of the small outskirt towns out here, and, it was, his house is, like, behind the house on one side is a cornfield and the other side is the woods,
Yeah.
And the water heater makes funny noises at night. It sounds like someone's dragging an axe across the basement floor.
Oh, jeez.
So I watched The Grudge alone at night in this house.
Oh, man.
And that was a mistake.
Yeah,
that was a mistake. For the longest time, I could not hear the death rattle noise without it shivering me timbers.
Yeah, no,
like,
the death rattle sound is still cringing to me to this day.
Yep, it is. It's ugh. And yeah, but that's the Japanese horror, man. Woof,
I'm telling
nobody
you,
survives.
The Japanese don't fuck around.
Nobody survives.
Nope.
Oh, but man, we had a lot of good memories. We used to, I used to throw a lot of parties, and we had friends who used to throw a lot of parties.
Yes.
And man, we had some. There's a reason I don't drink anymore. I can tell you that. Like I mean, I do. Like I had some white rum on New Year's. A couple glasses, but like never again. Like I tell you what, I'll never touch UV blue again.
No.
That's for sure.
Oh my god. Okay, so I got a couple of stories now that you brought that up. I remember it was New Year's Eve 2013 going into 2014. I remember this specifically because my dumbass decided to get a 6-pound bag of gummy bears.
Okay.
You remember
Yes.
this. That was
we did the vodka soaked gummy bears.
We soaked those things in vodka overnight. Those things expanded. You could not taste the alcohol, and that was dangerous. Now, the next day, New Year's Day, my birthday, was by far, probably as far as hangovers go, the worst birthday ever. Because I woke up, I woke up, and I immediately went to get a screwdriver, and then I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a bad day. I was praying to the porcelain god for all the way, that entire day, all the way through, to 10 p.m. I don't remember how I made it home.
Oh man, we were wild back then.
Oh my
It
God.
was crazy. I remember one of our friends who used to throw parties in his basement all the time.
Yes.
In his parents' basement.
Yes.
And we had some nights down there that we used to play beer pong. That was where we got introduced to Flippy Cup. That's where I first discovered the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes. I think he called it Tippy Cup.
Tippy Cup, yeah. Well, they didn't want to steal the name from the show,
Yeah.
but more like Tipsy Cup. Am I right? Anyways, but it was wild, and I do remember specifically one friend of ours who shall not be named. They know who they are.
Yep.
But they got a little too much of the drunk one particular night by making themselves a killer cocktail culmination of what I can only describe as an abomination to science.
Yes.
Like I swear this drink was an offense to God himself. Like this it was like literally 5 of the hardest possible liquors you could imagine mixed together with no chaser.
He had 2 of them. I remember specifically. He had 2 of them. And it resulted in a rampage that he ended up taking off his shirt, running around the house. My skinny ass tried to fucking catch up to him. He grabbed me by the neck and flipped my skinny ass.
Mm-hmm.
And
several people tried to restrain him.
We tried to get him into. We tried, like, we drive a car down to the backyard to get him into the car, and he wasn't going. And then when we called the medics got there, and the medics thought that he drove the car down to the backyard.
They had a hard time with him too, but
they did.
Safe to say that this particular friend survived the night just fine and well. That's why we can look back on it and laugh now, because
he did. He did.
He was a fool.
There's a bit more to the story. He was living with me at the time. He was this friend was living with me at the time, and he was living with me, my brother, my mom, and a few other people. My house is pretty much like the halfway house of the neighborhood, because my mom had a bigger heart than she should have at the time. But
a bigger heart than a heart bigger than her pocketbook.
Pretty fucking much.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
No, she met him at the hospital, and she texts me, and she goes, "This man is being chased around by 3 security guards. He is in his underwear, and he has to pee." I'm like, I know his situation isn't funny right now, but that night he earned the nickname Captain Jack Underpants.
That man was goated with the sauce.
He sure was.
He knew what he was doing. He didn't. He didn't, though. He did not know what he was doing. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I'm sure his memories of that situation are very vague, I believe.
I'm pretty sure he remembers the next morning, though, because
yeah.
I'm not going to go into detail. Let's just say that he may have pissed off some of the nurses.
But no, yeah, so it's all just funny stories now. I remember specifically another friend of ours who I won't name because it's another, like, embarrassing funny story. Not as bad, though.
Right, okay, yeah.
And just to be clear with that last story, it's a funny story, but we do not condone substance abuse over here. Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Be smart. But so I remember one time we were all headed to the movie theaters, and I was in the front. I was in the passenger seat. Yeah, I was in the passenger seat with whoever was driving, and you were in the back seat. You and two other friends of ours, and one of them was smoking a cigarette and drinking a soda.
Okay.
And I remember that they had put the cigarette out in the soda.
Oh, no.
They were a little out of it that day, and they kept drinking the soda.
I know who you're talking about. Oh my God.
They forgot who they put the cigarette out in it, right? And they kept drinking it, and they were like, "Man, this tastes kind of funny."
Oh my
I'd be
God.
like, well, I didn't even realize. And then, of course, they had the realization after they said that. They're like, oh no. Oh man, that
Yes.
sounds horrible. But,
Yes.
oh man, those were some of the most funny days. Yeah, I remember besides All Stars, we played a lot of Mario Party. We watched a lot of Family Guy. I remember the same guy who lived with you for a while lived with me for a while, and I remember that that's back when the Walking Dead was really at like its peak
Yes.
of its story, like during the prison years, and like so we watched that like every Sunday.
Nice.
You know, pretty much all the way up until the Negan stuff happened. I think was like right before I ended up moving to Freeport.
Yep.
So, and yeah, just like wow, all the parties and just having people hang out and the memories involved with that. We used to go to what was it, Magic Waters?
Yes.
When it was, isn't it like an offshoot of Hurricane Harbor now or something?
Yeah. So Six Flags acquired it. It will always and forever be Magic Waters to me. It is now called Hurricane Harbor Rockford.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail when it comes to like the whole like Six Flags thing. Yeah, Six Flags will say that they made it better, but because of the demographic of Rockford, it's a poverty driven city. They've made it worse. Parking is no longer free. It's about $10 for parking. The prices for food has skyrocketed. If you want to do like anything like it's expensive now, and it's right along the prices of Six Flags Great America in Gurnee. It no longer meets the demographic of the Rockford community. It's unfortunate to see something from my childhood take such a turn, but I mean, it was being run by the Rockford Park District, who wasn't really running it all that well. One of the water coasters that they had there for the longest time had to be shut down because they had 5 different lawsuits. It was the Splash Blaster 3000. They had 5 people hurt their backs because they were not they were not maintaining the inflation on the rafts, and people got hurt. So they had lawsuits, and they had to tear it down, and they replaced it with a ride called the Screaming Lizard.
I remember me and our aforementioned friend got on that water coaster together in the same raft, which in hindsight was a bad idea because between the two of us, there was too much weight.
Yes.
And we ended up like, so at the part you remember where the coaster like goes inside the tubes and gets dark and like you kind of like, it goes back and forth like left and right. And so you like slide up the wall a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we went like literally halfway up the wall in that part. We were like literally horizontal. And so, yeah, that was a bad idea.
Oh,
but man, I rode that I'm glad I got to experience that before it got shut down.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, though, of like, you know, how many things did we survive as kids that we probably realistically shouldn't
I'm
have?
telling you, I was
looking back on it.
I was actually one of the first people to ride that water coaster. My 5th grade teacher was the head of the lifeguards. That's how I was able to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you remember the giant drop though? Because I remember I did that like once just to say I did it, and that was it. Not the giant drop, but the double dare drop.
Yes,
that's what it
yes,
was.
I
The
remember
speed
that,
slide.
that very well. That I did that a handful of times actually.
I think I did it like once or twice, and after that it was it. See, it's funny because like I was down for that stuff in my early 20s, even though I still had like a fear of heights. But like, I think the older I've gotten, the more aware I've become of my own mortality, and now like thrill-seeking stuff seems a lot less thrilling. You know,
See,
now it just seems stupid and dangerous.
Roller coasters for me, still to this day, there's nothing but an adrenaline rush for me.
Oh, I would still love to ride I would still do roller coasters. I hate the climb, but the rest of it's fun. But
Oh,
like,
I love it.
you couldn't pay me to like go skydiving or bungee jumping or anything like
Yep.
that
Nope.
at
I'm
this point.
perfectly fine riding in an airplane, but you will not catch me. You will never catch me jumping out of one.
I don't even want to ride an airplane, honestly. Like I wish there was a better alternative besides air or water to get
Yeah.
to other places. There's not. We need one of those like cross country bullet trains. They just need to build that shit already. Just a bridge from America all the way over to Europe and a bullet train that gets you there in like 3 hours tops.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go.
Pretty
Let's
much.
make it happen. But yeah,
But I will
either
say,
way though, you still have to ride over water.
I will
A lot of
say,
water.
a lot of the different like nostalgic movies that come to mind when I think about my childhood. One of my all time favorites, the main actor, he was a comedy genius. May he rest in peace, Robin Williams. Mrs. Doubtfire, hands
Oh
down.
yeah,
That was where my love for Robin Williams began.
yeah, yeah. Mine would probably be the genie from Aladdin. That would be my first. That's my first memory.
Actually, yeah,
Which
no,
also happens
that
to be
sounds
one of
about
my
right.
favorite animated
Yep.
animated Disney movies. See, that character sparked a love for me of characters that fall under this kind of like fourth wall breaking, meta humor, pop culture references, and like of the ability to just like materialize anything out of anywhere. And the genie wasn't the one who started that. It was actually Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny did a lot of that stuff.
Yep.
But the genie like popularized it to a higher degree, and that's those that particular type of comedy has always been fascinating to me, even as a young kid.
Oh yeah.
And that evolved into things like like Pennywise from the It movies, from the newer ones.
Yeah.
With Bill Skarsgård.
Mhm.
He's got those same powers except evil.
Right.
He can turn into different things. He can make stuff appear out of nowhere. Like, and then I talked about in the last episode, Everything Everywhere All at Once. The villain in that basically has those same cartoon character powers. There's
Yeah.
even like cartoon sound effects that play when she does some of the stuff she does.
Oh yeah.
Like making a person's head explode, but instead of blood, it's like confetti that comes out. Just that kind of stuff. And the genie basically sparked my love for those types of characters.
Oh yes.
And your love for Robin Williams, besides Mrs. Doubtfire.
He was just all around one of my favorite actors. Fun fact about Robin Williams: there was an episode that him and Billy Crystal an episode of Friends that him and Billy Crystal cameoed in that they weren't even scripted to be in. They were nearby finishing up the filming of Cadillac Man, if I'm not mistaken. They were approached by the studio that was filming Friends, and they were asked if they wanted to make a cameo. Their scene in that episode of Friends was completely 100% all improv. They didn't have a script or anything. They improvised it all.
That doesn't surprise me. I can't remember the name of the band, but Robin Williams he played a character in a music video for an old 80s rock band.
Oh, nice.
At one point, too. Where I think he was trying to get money from somebody who owed him money, if I remember correctly, in the music video. I'll have to do some research on that later, but when I think of like childhood Robin Williams movies, I think of like Flubber.
Yes, I loved Flubber. I loved Flubber.
One.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Disney did him dirty. They really did him dirty. Like they used his like without his consent. I know, like they had sold the products of the genie with using his voice recordings. I mean, yeah, obviously he signed off on fucking like papers and whatnot, but so they could do pretty much anything they wanted with his voice. But they did him dirty. They used him for the couple of movies that they did, and they just fired him.
I know what you're talking about specifically. Like I've heard the deep dives into this. So what happened was that he agreed to play the genie with the understanding that they wouldn't use his likeness to sell the movie. They didn't want him to be the selling point for he didn't want to be the selling point for the movie.
That makes that's right. Okay.
And they agreed to that, but then when they actually like started putting out trailers and posters and stuff, they put a heavy emphasis on the genie.
Yep.
And that was like to his dismay. So actually, after Robin Williams stepped down as the genie, he was replaced by Dan Castellaneta, who's the voice of Homer Simpson.
Yep.
And he played him also in the Kingdom Hearts games as well.
He sure did.
So
there was they had Robin Williams recorded hours of material for his character for the genie, and they had to go through hours of different material just to pick and choose what they wanted for
the best parts.
The best parts, exactly. And then like he didn't come back for the second Aladdin movie, but Robin Williams reprised his role as the genie in the third Aladdin film.
The King of Thieves.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually remember that one probably more distinctly than the second one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It was one of those trilogies where I loved the first one and barely remember the second one, but then really loved the third one.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of them. And hell, like, the songs from the first Aladdin are classics, you know.
Oh, yes.
Absolute classics, you know, Friend Like Me and all that. But... like, and I really enjoyed the live action remake too. I thought Will Smith did a fantastic job in that.
He sure did. And there's rumor going around that if they they do still plan on doing a sequel for the live action Aladdin franchise, but they're talking about, from what I've heard, they're talking about getting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to play the genie because of all the controversy around Will Smith.
Yeah, I think like that's kind of done and over with now, or at least it should be. Like we've all moved on from the slappening. It's done.
Yes, the slappening. Oh my God! Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Oh shit!
Goddamn.
But like like. When I think back on like Aladdin, one of the first memories that I have is actually like the opening song from Aladdin and the King of Thieves, where the whole town is singing about Aladdin and Jasmine getting married.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're gonna have a party and it's gonna be the wedding of the century. And like the genies like run around as different characters trying to get everyone all hyped up and everything. You know, it's like, oh, I loved it. I just love like some of the storylines that one took. It's weird. I always have like sometimes the thirds are the best for me. Not always. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End is my favorite, and that's the third one.
Mm-hmm.
But like Lord of the Rings, my favorite is the Two Towers.
Yes.
And I think there's weird reasons for it. Like Two Towers is my favorite because it has the most Gollum in it.
Yes, Gollum is absolutely the best.
And that's like specifically the only reason. Even though Return of the King is an objectively better movie, Two Towers is my favorite. Personally. Yeah, I have. Oh man, that's Lord of the Rings is pretty nostalgic for me too. But I read the books. And man, let me tell you that was some heavy reading for at the time I read it. At the age I read those books, I don't even think I understood most of those old English words, if I'm being honest.
Right.
But I got the gist of the story. I read them. I know enough to remember specifically that all of the stuff that went down with Shelob in the Return of the King movie actually happened in the Two Towers book.
Nice.
It happened in the book. I also remember that the books were split into two halves. Like, when I remember reading the Two Towers and the first half of the book focusing on, like, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and then the second half of the book focusing on Sam and Frodo.
Yep.
You know? And
poor Sam, he always got the shit into the stick.
He did. But man, he stuck it out.
He did.
And I also remember Return of the King, the book, ending not where the movie ended, but actually with them going back to the Shire and having it have been taken over by Saruman, like their mayor corrupted by Saruman, and the hobbits have to deal with that before you get the actual ending where Frodo and Bilbo go off to the land of the elves.
Mm-hmm.
So they cut that out of the movie, but I have the extended editions of Lord of the Rings on Blu-ray, and they added in so much from the books in those.
I have that same collection, by the way.
They actually give a fate to Saruman, like by having Wormtongue kill him in the extended editions, which is something that should have been in the original.
Yeah.
Like they left his fate unknown for whatever reason. Rest in peace, Christopher Lee, but holy shit, like that was one of the loose ends that didn't need to be cut out. Like all this other stuff, like some of the other stuff they add in to the movies in the extended editions didn't need to be there, but it's nice that we have them. Like there's a whole scene, I think in the beginning of the third one where Murray and Pippin are like high on pipeweed and like having a giggle, and it's like they're just like laughing and like off their rocker around all of these like dead like orcs and ents in the water.
Mm-hmm.
There's
and this is in a recent video game, but it's still Lord of the Rings related. There's this game that there's a piece of the map on Goat Simulator 3 where they have a fucking hobbit hole on a fucking mountain, and you go in there and you find the hat that Gandalf wears, the Gandalf hat. You also find the One Ring, and when you activate its powers, it goes over the goat's neck, and it basically has the same effect as when Frodo put the One Ring on. He disappears. It's interesting.
That is cool. I was just thinking too, because you mentioned like Harry Potter earlier, and we were talking about schools. Do you remember those days in school where the teacher would decide to be lazy and just like put a movie on for everybody?
I sure do.
And that was the first time I ever saw Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, was in school, on VHS tape on one of those big old fat TVs sitting on the rolly tray with the belts keeping it from falling off.
Exactly. I remember. That was actually the first time I watched. My teacher skipped over one. We only watched the second half of this movie, because the first half has a pretty risque part in it. But it was right around the time when the movie Titanic came out, and it was I was in third grade, and I was given homework to watch the entire Titanic film. Obviously, my mom had to like cover my eyes when draw me like one of your French girls.
right.
Innocent
Speaking
eyes.
of Titanic, I saw that's getting a limited re-release in theaters in 4K and 3D.
It is. I saw that too. I was gonna bring that up earlier, but I couldn't think of a proper way to bring it up until now.
But that's very, very interesting. I spent a lot of time in schools and classes for neurodivergent children, and I remember like I have like weird nostalgia for like some of the punishments too, like in school suspension, or like writing the same line 100 times, like Bart Simpson's doing on the chalkboard at the opening of every episode. But I had to do that on sheets of line paper. And I remember one time I had like detention, me and one other kid, and the rest of the class got to go on a field trip to a museum, and the principal actually took me and the other kid with them to help them like deliver some, like he took us in his pickup truck and we helped deliver some wood to a friend of his or something.
Oh, nice.
And then he bought us McDonald's.
Nice.
And in a way, we were kind of like, oh shit, this is like a reward.
Right.
Because like, haha, y'all got like, y'all had to go to a boring ass museum and we got McDonald's, because we were kids, so that's how our brains worked, at the time. Man, I also remember before. Did you ever like? This is a question I wanted to ask before I forget. Did you ever? And I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about. Let's be specific here. I'm not talking about the erotic arts when I say this.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just talking about things that were rated higher than you were allowed to watch. Did you ever see something as a kid that you shouldn't have, but like it led to you becoming a fan of it? Like, for example, I started watching South Park when I was probably like 13, like way before I should have. I remember I saw the first Final Destination movie on TV, not like a year or two after it came out, when I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to be sleeping, and I kept like peeking out from under the covers and like peeking glances of the movie. And I distinctly remember like the scene from the end of the movie where the sign swings into the back of the guy's head and shit.
Yes, actually. And it's South Park. What I was on vacation with my mom and my brother. We all went to Paducah, Kentucky to visit my cousins, and my cousins had a PlayStation 1, and they had one of the South Park games for it. And if I remember correctly, it was the one where you're running around South Park trying to find all the turkeys.
Okay, yeah.
That was my first exposure
shooter.
to South Park. And when I got...
That's actually pretty tame compared to the show, if we're being honest, though.
Yeah, it's fair. But no, like, that was my first exposure to South Park. And then when I got Dish Network, when my mom got Dish Network, we had Comedy Central, and South Park was one of my favorite shows that I would go behind her back and actually watch. But then she found out I was watching it late at night, and she blocked Comedy Central.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. To be fair, we should not have been watching those things at the ages that we were watching them at. I was watching, like we talked about Adult Swim earlier, and I was watching a lot of that stuff. Now, granted, when Adult Swim first started, it was still fairly safe because they had like shows like Space Ghost Coast to Coast and Baby Blues, which was like Sunday morning comic strip. You know, they weren't really pushing the envelope at this point. They weren't putting shows out that were like super gory. They were like a little bit with like C-Lab 2021, but even then, you know, it was toned down mostly, and they were just reusing old Hanna-Barbera assets anyways and like dubbing them over with new audio. So, but then after a while, you know, but even, you know, just the themes and stuff, you know, like I remember when The Simpsons first started, a lot of parents like freaked out because Bart Simpson said stuff like "eat my shorts" and "don't have a cow," and just like look at what they get away with saying on TV now.
Exactly.
You know?
There was another show that because my mom had blocked Comedy Central, I discovered E Entertainment, channel 46. And it was channel 46 in Rockford, and late at night Howard Stern would come on, and he was a pretty he had
on broadcast television. Howard Stern,
yes, they had Howard Stern on broadcast television. Yes, a lot of the shit that he had on there was censored, but yes, Howard Stern was on broadcast television.
That's insane.
And now you can't find him anywhere else other than if you have a subscription to Sirius XM, which I actually worked for them for a short period of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been around. I thought you were going to say Beavis and Butthead for a moment because, you know, they made a resurgence recently with a new season on Paramount+.
I am the great Cornholio. I need TP for my bunghole. Are you threatening me?
Yep. That was another weird show that I grew up with, man. The 90s was full of weird cartoons that we really shouldn't have been watching. Even the ones that were supposedly safe for kids, they went through so many, like, moments where they weren't always, like, Ed, Edd, and Eddy, for example, was kind of a gross-out cartoon. I mean, they ended up in a lot of predicaments where they ended up, like, completely butt-ass naked for whatever reason.
Yes, and the Mucky Boys episode?
Yeah, and, and like, okay, so there was actually an episode of Dexter's Laboratory that had to be like I don't think it ever actually got to air. Like, it was canceled before it even aired, but it was called Rude Removal, and this is true. You can look it up. In this episode, the idea was that Dexter took him and Dee Dee and he put them in this device where it takes all of their rudeness and extracts it from them and like puts it into another being. So basically they separated their polite side and their rude side. So their polite side was like, running around being like super nice, little perfect angels, but the rude sides were going around cursing, flipping people off, mooning people.
Yep.
And the Cartoon Network was like, no, we can't have, it was censored. It was heavily censored, but they still wouldn't allow it to air because it was just too much. And but you can find it on the internet now, and someone even edited it to make it uncensored, and they dubbed in like the uncensored audio.
Alrighty
so,
then.
Yeah, so it's like almost, and I think Adult Swim themselves actually uploaded it on their YouTube channel at one point.
Nice.
So, yeah, the uncensored version. So, there is stuff like that. I remember Adult Swim when the Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie film for theaters came out, which later was released as Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie film for theaters for DVD.
Yes.
When that first came out, they aired the entire movie on Adult Swim one night, but the gimmick was that it was a tiny little video in the corner playing over other shows, and you could barely see it, you couldn't hear it at all because the other show's audio was playing. So it was just but it was the entire movie from start to finish, just playing in the corner when other shows were playing, like a little face cam down there. Yep. They were always doing stuff like that. And so most of my nostalgia, besides video games, just revolves around like cartoons, if I'm being honest. And I even watch some of the like Tom and Jerry, Top Cat, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw. I watched a lot of that. Those cartoons were before my time, but I grew up with them. I feel so like grateful to have grown up in that era where I got to like be a fan of the old and the new. Like, I grew up around people and in a time where I got to experience vinyl and cassette tape and CD and Walkmans and all this evolving into MP3 players and iPods, and like I grew up with that.
Yeah.
I grew up with us going from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to streaming. Like I was there for that evolution. And a lot of people who came after me can't say that. They were born in the Blu-ray age. They were born in the iPod times,
a little
back in the days of the wordy word books.
Oh yeah, a little off topic, but still on topic. I remember one of the times that you, me, and a friend, we went Tech Nerd. We went to Summerfest back in 2014.
Yes.
For the first PlayStation event that they had out there, and still to this day, the picture that you took of me, with your what Samsung did you have at the time? I can't remember. It was one of the newer phones.
Was it? No, was it? Maybe it was the Galaxy S6 at the time? No, it wasn't that one yet. It was before that.
It had to have been.
At that time, I think I had like a crappy like Cricket phone.
Oh no, you had a decent phone, because the quality of this picture. I used this picture as a profile picture for myself for the longest time, and it's still to this day one of my favorite pictures that you took of me while I was sitting there playing infamous Second Son on one of the PS4s that they had in that PlayStation trailer.
Yes, yeah, that was like the closest that I ever got to going to like a official like event run by a company like PlayStation. Like PlayStation themselves was actually there. Unfortunately, nobody that I knew. But like, because I do know a few people there,
right? And I remember I think it was in that same weekend, you, me, and Tech Nerd, we went to E3, the E3 theater experience.
I think it might have been the same weekend, or it might have been like a different one. But we did, the three of us, also go together to that too, because I remember you and I staying the night at his place.
I remember that. Yep. Out
in Wisconsin, and we drove there.
Yep.
The next, so I think we actually two bird, one stoned it. I think we did one day and one the other. Yep. So, and I actually went to several of those with him and several of those with you.
And then we met up with one of the contestants from the Tester season 3 at one of the local ice cream shops in Milwaukee.
Yep.
Oh, what was
I remember that Asuka
424. I still have her on my PlayStation friends list.
Yup. I don't think she's on Facebook anymore, but she was for a while. I had her as a friend on there.
Okay.
But yeah, she's still on my PlayStation friends list as well. I actually remember getting a lot of insight from her into like how that show actually worked behind the scenes.
Yeah,
It was kind of interesting. That's where I learned that a lot of the stuff you see in reality shows is just a bunch of bullshit for the most part.
we sat there and talked to her for a good couple of hours too.
She was also on a show called King of the Nerds that was on TBS.
I remember that.
Yep. So that was yeah, we've met some people. It's kind of cool. I also remember I went to a local Comic-Con in that was in Rockford at the time, and I met the guy who voices Lionel from the Thundercats.
Nice.
And the guy who created the Oblongs, another Adult Swim show. I met both of them.
Very nice.
I got pictures with both of them out there somewhere on my Facebook. I'll have to dig for them. And that, oddly enough, was also the place that I had met one of your exes before you even met her and started dating.
Who was it? Was it Chelsea?
Yeah, at the time I didn't know, like because they had a cosplay contest and she was Harley Quinn for that.
Yep, that part. That was her thing.
Yeah, so and that like there was a lot of good cosplay at that contest though. I remember the dude in the Iron Man had a Iron Man suit that was actually like did things when he hit the buttons and stuff, and he was the one who won. So. Oh man, so many memories, so little time.
Yep.
It's that's one of the things about nostalgia. It kind of reminds you that unfortunately, eventually, down the road, all good things must come to an end. So in the last episode, I didn't have enough comments yet at the time of recording it to be able to read any, but I got a lot of comments at the time of recording this one. There's a bunch on the first episode, so I'm going to read some of those now. Theodore Taylor says, this was deep, and global warming is real. Why is it this warm and freaking January? He said, I'm enjoying it, but I definitely understand the gravity of our human condition and the price paid due to it. Very, very deep take, my friend. I enjoyed reading that. Omega says, that says our friend Oscar, I'm very glad that my suggestion helped kickstart this new project, Oversoul. I definitely enjoy hearing more of your takes about entertainment or even life in general, and about character development at The Office. We have been rewatching The Walking Dead, so Daryl Dixon came to my mind on character development.
Nice.
So that's a good... Yeah, so because I asked people for their favorite character development, because that was the topic of the first episode.
Yeah.
And yes, I would agree. Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead definitely comes to mind as well. You left a comment.
Yes, I did.
That said, "Do no harm, but take no shit" is something I've been living by lately as well. Keep up the good work, bro. Well, thank you. That was
You're welcome.
very kind. And then my good friend Mythos, Wolf Brother Mythos from Frost and Fists, said, "A really great podcast, my brother. I think it's great that you discussed your own character development, and I'm really proud of the way you've managed to better yourself over the years. It sucks that you had to go through some heartache and hardships to get there, but you're right. You've come out of these things stronger than before. I really enjoyed that talk about Kratos and South Park on the same subject. I think these are great points and well thought through. Trying to think of some character development that I enjoyed. I'm suddenly drawing blanks on examples, although I know I always enjoy seeing that." He must have edited this because he goes on to say, Riku is a great example. Riku from Kingdom Hearts,
Yes.
by the way. Fueled by jealousy and his competitive nature at first, finding the value of his loved ones, holding himself apart from others because he's been tainted by his past, and ultimately accepting who he is to use the strength built by his journey to help build a better future with his friends and for others as well. He really found his own heart by the time he's promoted to Keyblade Master. Anyways, good show. I'm looking forward to more of these podcasts in the future. Well, thank you so much for that. If you're listening to this one, then this will be the third at this point. So I hope you've enjoyed all of them so far. So, anyways, that'll be it for this particular podcast episode. Thank you everyone who's listening. If you would like me to read your comment on the next episode, then please leave it down below. It may be an episode or two. Chances are it will be the next episode this time because I'm actually going to take a week hiatus after this one, and so the next episode after this one will actually be 2 weeks out, not 1 week out. while I decide to put together some time for topic and, spend some time working on the Let's Plays. So besides the comments down below, you can also reach me at the Gmail. That's MrOversoul53@gmail.com, MrOversoul53 and Oversoul53 on Twitter, Oversoul53. Nick, do you have any socials that you would like to plug? Where can people find you online?
You can find me on TikTok at the.vaping.fiend. I don't post very often, but I've got a lot of content on there. That's pretty much, I have Facebook, I've got Twitter, but I'm barely on either of those other two, but TikTok it has been my go-to lately. But yeah, if you guys want to follow me on TikTok, don't be butthurt if I don't follow you back, because I kind of reached my cap on people that I can follow. I really wish that they would they would fix that and be like an unlimited following type thing, but the cap is 10,000. So.
And how about over on would you like some people to add you on PlayStation for the sake of like playing GTA Online?
Yes, yeah, actually, yeah, that'd be perfect. If anybody wants to link up for some heists on Grand Theft Auto Online, my PlayStation Network tag is Durbinator541. That's D as in dog, URB as in boy, INATOR 541.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you on this episode, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, click that like button to feed the hungry beast that is the algorithm, because it helps not only with that, but also lets me know that I'm doing a good job and that you genuinely enjoyed it. Thank you to my guest, Nick, for joining me. I'd be happy to have you on another one.
Hell yeah.
And until the next time, I'll catch you all in the Let's Plays. Bye-bye.
Bye.